Are you hungry?
Give me something good.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Görgött. Today we're cooking something typically Swiss. I live in Switzerland. I'm married to a Swiss woman, so my wife's Swiss. My daughter's half-half. And this is a dish that kind of got passed down the generations on my wife's side. And I have the luxury to cook it for you today. And it's called Chäs Knöpfli. It's kind of cheese dumplings. You make really small dough dumplings and you mix that with melted cheese and some caramelized onions, and it's amazing. But before we have a look at the board here, as always, do me the favor, if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button. Check the little bell icon so that you get notifications when new content comes online. And to help me with the YouTube algorithm, please also click the thumbs up below, like the video. But now let's have a look at what we have here on the board. As you can see, there's some stuff that we kind of pre-prepared. We have the caramelized onions. It's really simple. You just slice up your onions in about 3mm slices. You put some neutral oil in a pan, heat that up quite hot. Then you put your onions in, turn down the heat, and leave them in there to caramelize. This takes a while. It takes probably 25 minutes to half an hour. Because you could cheat and add sugar, but it just makes it too sweet. It's nicer if they get, to use the time and caramelize in their own kind of sugar content. And then obviously we have the apple compote. Now this is made of a kind of apple called Grafsteiner. You choose whatever you have at your local kind of grocery. It's important that the apple is quite sour. You don't want a very sweet apple, so sour and relatively firm. And what you do first, you squeeze some lemon into a bowl. This is to avoid oxidation of the apples. They get brown otherwise. Then obviously you have to peel your apple, cut them into wedges, put them into the lemon juice. And then you put all of that into a pot, put the pot on the oven, on the stove, add a 3/4 cup of sugar, put the lid on, and let it cook till desired consistency. It depends a little bit on what kind of apples and how big of the pieces you want to have left in there, but I would say around about 10 minutes. And then you leave that to cool down. And now this is the cheese we're using. It's a Gruyere, so it's quite a powerful cheese, quite a salty cheese. And we grated up about 200 grams of it, finely grated. And for the rest, it's all things that kind of make up the dough. We have eggs, we have flour, we have salt, we have water, and we have milk. And the golden rule is per egg, it's 100 grams of flour. And we'll start now by making the dough. We'll start with eggs. Put your eggs in. I'm making 6 eggs, so I have 600 grams of flour. Just break them up a bit. Take a sieve. Sieve the flour in there. Try to whisk quite hard so that you get the lumps out. Now we can start to add some liquid. I would say it's difficult. It's feeling, but it's maybe for every part milk you need 3 parts of water, because otherwise the water makes them a bit more springy, and the milk just makes them soft. And now at the beginning, it's just all about kind of being able to work in all the flour, so don't worry about the consistency yet. So we worked in all our flour, and you can see the consistency now. This is kind of what we want. We don't want it to fall too quickly, but we still want it to fall because it's going to drip into the boiling water. So consistency-wise, we're happy. And now for the salt. You need quite a lot of salt. When you taste the dough like this, it needs to taste over-salted, then it's perfect. We have it. Now cover it and let it rest for about half an hour. And then we'll make the Chnöpfli. Our dough has been resting. Perfect consistency. Now we need quite a bit of utensils to make the Chnöpfli. We have a pot of salt water, like pasta water, you know, just normal water with quite a bit of salt in it. We have some cold water, and I'll show you what we need to do with that. In the oven, we have a big bowl, and it's at 100 degrees. And that we need to melt the cheese in between the layers, but I'll show you that once we start making our Chnöpfli. So we'll move over to the stove now and start making them. As you can see, we have a bit of a wider shot today because there's a lot of stuff we need to show. We have our dough, we have the salted water that's boiling, we have our bowl where we're going to put the ready Chnöpfli in, and we have this. It's kind of a sieve, but as you can see, the holes are a bit bigger than normal, and this is where you put the dough through. You cannot scrape it with a normal spatula. And then we have some cold water. It's to stop the cooking. You have to stop the cooking twice. It's kind of a timing so that you're able to tell when the Chnöpfli is ready. But we start now with filling this. Start like that. And now I hope you can see it. We start scraping and they fall in. Like that. And now we have to wait for the first boil. As you can see, the first boil is there. We cool it down with some water. And then you need to wait for the second boil. And we have our second boil. Cool it down again. And now we wait for the third boil, and on the third boil we can take them out. You can see it's boiling for the third time. It's time to take them out. And it's time for our first layer of cheese. And this goes into the oven now at 100 degrees. And you layer the dumplings and the cheese until you have no dumplings left. And we'll cut it up now because then the onions come on. So the last batch is ready. You can see the melted cheese on here. This is the last layer. Like that. And on the last layer we put some more cheese. You can never have too much cheese. And the smoky thing there is cheese. And then we have our beautiful onions, nicely caramelized without sugar. And just spread them on top. And then that goes back into the oven for another couple of minutes, just for the cheese to melt. And then we can serve it up. It's done. Our Chäs Knöpfli is ready to eat. Let's plate it up. A little bit of everything. Like that. Some of our homemade apple compote. A little bit on the side like that. And there we go, a real classic. Now let's give this a taste. This is so good. This is the ultimate Swiss comfort food. As you know, I make a lot of comfort food on this channel, but I think this is probably the first Swiss comfort food I made. It's so nice. You have the nice kind of strong taste of the cheese combined with the sweetness of the onions and the apple compote. This is perfect for a day like today. It's actually Sunday today. It's the first autumny day where it's been raining all day, probably just around 10 degrees Celsius, and this for dinner. Doesn't get much better on a Sunday. But now it's time for me to say goodbye and share the rest of this with my family. But before we go, if you stuck with me this far, there must have been something you liked about this episode. So please do me the favor and click the like button below. It helps the YouTube algorithm to kind of get my video out there. And if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and check the little bell icon to get notifications. But that's it for this time. Chäs Knöpfli. Take care. Bye-bye.